Thank you very much, Sebi. Good afternoon, and welcome to Chautauqua Institution's 4th Annual Robert H. Jackson Lecture. The topic of this lecture series is the Supreme Court of the United States, a central institution in our government, and we believe, all of us, and we believe correctly, in our lives. Just 2 weeks ago, the Supreme Court concluded its most recent term and began a recess that will last until the first Monday in October. This summer moment, and of course, this Chautauqua setting for serious reflection, is thus fitting for consideration of the Supreme Court of today and the Supreme Court of tomorrow. The Jackson Lecture is named for Justice Robert H. Jackson, who served on the Supreme Court from 1941 until his death in 1954. Before he went to Washington, D.C. in 1934 to serve in the Roosevelt administration, rising to become Solicitor General, then Attorney General, then Supreme Court Justice, and in addition, Chief Prosecutor at Nuremberg of the principal Nazi war criminals, Robert Jackson was a Jamestown, New York, and Chautauqua County lawyer. He was, in particular, and throughout his life, a Chautauquan. He regularly visited these grounds, and he spoke frequently from these platforms, including literally this one. Robert Jackson lived one of the most interesting, permanently consequential lives in our country's history. His achievements and his eloquent words continue to shape United States and international law. Today's Supreme Court justices, along with many, many others, study, invoke, and revere Justice Jackson's words and his example. The Robert H. Jackson Center in Jamestown, which proudly co-sponsors today's lecture, commemorates and educates here and around the world regarding Justice Jackson's contributions. And Chautauqua Institution fittingly recognizes Jackson and its connection to him through this lecture series. Today's Jackson lecturer, Jeffrey Toobin, builds on a great tradition. In 2005, Professor Jeffrey Stone of the University of Chicago, in the inaugural Jackson lecture, discussed the Supreme Court and freedom of speech in wartime across history and today. In 2006, Linda Greenhouse, the great New York Times Supreme Court reporter, delivered a Jackson lecture here that surveyed the court's work from her special vantage point and expertise and considered the changes that can occur and have occurred in individual justices, including Harry Blackmun, William Rehnquist, and Robert Jackson, during their years of service on the court. Last July, Seth Waxman, an attorney in Washington and a former Solicitor General of the United States, previewed in his Jackson lecture here the argument that he subsequently delivered last December to the Supreme Court concerning the rights of detainees at Guantanamo to federal court habeas corpus review, a case that he won 5-4 on June 12th of this year. And so you, as the moot court, all deserve credit for assisting him. Jeffrey Toobin, today's lecturer, is one of today's very finest reporters, writers, and legal and political commentators. He's an honors graduate of Harvard College and Harvard Law School, a former law clerk to Judge J. Edward Lombard of the United States Court of Appeals for the Second Circuit, and a former federal prosecutor, including in the Eastern District of New York. He is a staff writer, that most unassuming, impressive title in the world of journalism and really arts and letters, for the New Yorker magazine, and he is senior correspondent at CNN. Jeff's current book, The Nine, Inside the Secret World of the Supreme Court, is brilliant reporting and beautiful writing about the Supreme Court. This is not merely a personal view. The reviewers, from popular to scholarly, agree, and the book was on the New York Times bestseller list for over 4 months, which I find heartening because of the book's quality and because the Supreme Court truly matters. The court raises and addresses some of our toughest questions, beginning with issues of its own role and reaching issues of our very lives. Robert Jackson, of course, knew this thoroughly, intimately, as a Supreme Court advocate and then from the inside as a justice. One glimpse of this Jackson knowledge from his deeply reflective mind and skilled pen is found in a few sentences that Justice Jackson penned privately to a friend in spring 1950, as Jackson and his fellow justices were wrestling with early cases concerning the constitutionality of racial segregation in public schools. Jackson lamented in 1950 what he viewed as a history of the Supreme Court taking an unjustified judicial control over social and economic affairs. He disapproved generally of, quote, a majority out of 9 appointed life tenure justices settling such issues. Jackson noted that a great many people abandon the so-called judicial restraint position and think that, quote, the court should decide such questions provided it will decide their way. The problem in my mind, Jackson wrote 58 years ago, is not merely should we 9 decide this case, but should such an institution decide such questions for this nation? I'm not sure that very many of today's Supreme Court justices share those Jacksonian questions and implicit views. I quote them nonetheless because they are important and because they include, clairvoyantly, Jackson's call to learn and think carefully about the 9. I am very pleased to introduce Chautauqua Institution's 2008 Robert H. Jackson Lecturer, the author of the 9, my friend, Jeffrey Toobin.